Hi, this is Professor Buck from Jefferson College bringing you a series of videos related to APA Style 7th edition focused on in-text citations and reference listings. You can print a copy of these PowerPoint slides via the link on the slide or below in Show More, or if you prefer the visual representation of notes that take up fewer pages, you can print a copy of the notes. In this video in the series, we're going to be talking about the difference between online versus print sources when you're creating a reference listing, and also talk about DOIs and URLs. We'll begin with online versus print sources. Most sources that you use now are retrieved online, and those reference listings will usually end with either a DOI or a URL. We do not include both. It's either or. So reference listings start with the author, followed by the publication date inside parentheses, then the title of the work. This is the same whether or not the source is an online source or a print source. The difference will come in the final piece, which is the publication source information. This part of the reference listing may be different in the print version versus the online version of a source. It's also important to determine the type of source. So each specific type of source also follows different rules. So you'll determine the type of source. You'll also need to check if a DOI is available, or if not, if a URL is available when writing your reference listings. So let's start to talk about DOIs and URLs by defining them. What is a URL? This stands for Uniform Resource Locator. This is the map to digital information on the internet. You may call this the web address. The URL is made up of several pieces. The first piece, the HTTP or HTTPS, is the protocol. That's going to be followed by the host name or domain name or home page. This represents the server that holds all of these files. So we talk about files being saved in the cloud, but in reality, they're saved physically on a server somewhere in the world. That is followed by the path to the document on that server. You can think of this as the path to a file that you have saved on your computer. So if you have multiple layers of folders on your computer, such as a folder for Jefferson College, and then a folder for this specific class, that would be the path that you would take to get to a specific file. Finally, the last part of a URL is the file name of that specific document on that server. To use our analogy, this would be the name of the specific file that you have saved in your folder for the class on your computer. So this URL, or map to digital information on the internet, is not stable. Content on these internet servers is frequently moved, reconstructed, so the folders are rearranged, moved into different positions, or even deleted. This results in broken hyperlinks or URLs. Whenever possible, you should use a stable link, sometimes called a permalink or persistent link. If you can't find this stable link, then try to use a link to an archived version that wouldn't change and wouldn't break. When you're using URLs, don't include a proprietary URL in a reference listing. This type of URL would be something that would require special access, some kind of special login or payment to get to that specific source on that server. Examples of proprietary URLs would be links to resources in library or academic databases such as EBSCOhost, links in a learning management system such as Blackboard or Canvas, a link to information inside a textbook publisher's digital learning platform. These include MindTap, Reveal, Connect, Launchpad, things like that. Also, don't include a URL that requires some form of payment or special login credentials to get to the source. If you do have a source with a broken link, that source should either be removed or replaced as a source for your paper. So that's what a URL is. Most of you are familiar with that and have used those in the past. What is a DOI? You're probably less familiar with a digital object identifier. This is a unique code with a mixture of numbers and letters presented as a URL that is a persistent, stable, will work forever link to content posted online. Not all sources of information have a digital object identifier or DOI code. Mainly, you're going to see this with scholarly sources, articles published in scholarly journals. However, any published work can register a DOI. In the work itself, you may see the DOI listed under a couple of different formats, and that's because the DOI has evolved over the years. The current preferred format is to list it as a URL with the https://doi.org/10 followed by that specific code. So if you see a DOI that has one of those other formats, you need to convert it to this most up-to-date format. Now, where would I find a digital object identifier number? There's two different places you should look. If you find a source through an academic database, such as EBSCOhost, in the detailed record, which will look something like this, each field is listed separately: the title, the source, the authors, and if you scroll down near the bottom of most detailed records, there will be a listing for the digital object identifier. If you don't see it there, then you can open the print version of this article. So the PDF is going to be the version of the article that shows how it would appear in the print version of that journal. And if the article has a DOI code, it's usually on the first page of a specific article. So look in one of those two places. If you're using a book or a report, you should try looking at the copyright page. If it has a DOI, that's the most common place it would be listed. Finally, if you're just curious and you want to search, you can actually go to the crossref.org website. This is the organization that manages digital object identifiers, and you can put in your reference listing information and search and see if maybe somebody registered one after the work was originally published. So as I previously mentioned, you should never use both a DOI and a URL. So how do you know which one you're supposed to use under which circumstances? The first question you have to ask is, was this a source you only accessed in a print hard copy physical format? For example, the print version of the textbook. If you only ever looked at it in that printed hard copy physical format, then you don't need to include the DOI or URL unless it's listed on the copyright page or the first page of the work. If you, however, found this source online, then the next question you have to ask is there a DOI available for this online source? If the answer is yes, then you're going to include that in the reference listing. If the answer is no, then you have to figure out if you will include the URL. If you find that source through one of those proprietary sites previously discussed, such as EBSCO, Learning Management System, a textbook publisher platform, then you will not include that proprietary URL. You will not include it. If you found it somewhere else that doesn't have that proprietary URL, then you will include the complete URL to that specific web page or file. You should copy that from the browser address bar and not alter any of the characters. So when you're putting a DOI or a URL in your reference list, they are all going to be formatted as live active clickable links. Most of the time, your word processor will make these hyperlinks or clickable links automatically. So if you copy that URL into Word and then press Enter or space after it, it will usually turn it into a blue underlined clickable link. Again, make sure you copy the full URL or permalink and paste it directly into your reference page or reference list to avoid errors or broken links. If it's the DOI, you're going to copy that full DOI word for word, character for character, making sure you put it in the preferred format. Most importantly, anytime you are inserting a URL or a DOI, do not alter it in any way. Don't add characters, take characters away, put in spaces, take out spaces. That will create a broken link. So make sure you keep all the characters in there. Finally, I have a few quick don'ts. Don't include the phrase retrieved from or type out DOI colon. Don't include the name of the database that you found a source. Finally, don't include the date you found the source. It's rare that that would be included. Most things have an archive, so you wouldn't need that. Finally, always test your links before you turn in your assignment and make sure they're functional. If it's no longer functional, fix it. If you can't find it anymore, try the archive at archive.org. If you still can't find a link to that original source, you need to remove or replace it in your paper. Last couple of notes about DOI and URL. This is a relatively new piece of APA style that started in 2012 and was updated in 2020 in the 7th edition. If you look at older examples of references, they may not include DOIs and URLs or may not use the current format. Finally, be cautious of citation tools in your word processor, databases, or other websites. Many of these are out of date and inaccurate.